Today we will acknowledge and recognise Sir Eric's lifetime of service. We are proud to have you as an honorary member, sir, and for almost 25 years. Rotary Adelaide has celebrated its centenary throughout and remembered the founders at a special lunch on the 24th of August, and then the charter of our club on the 4th of February. So, Eric, we now recognise your centenary, achieved on Monday the 3rd of June. As the headline of The Australian on Saturday announced, you are 100, not out. This is the same as the label on the Rotary Adelaide Centenary wine. We all hope that you will enjoy this Shiraz in many years to come, and I have a sample bottle here for you. Today, 4 Rotarians will share their insights into your life of influence and that of a true Rotarian, a person of action, creating impactful service. Oliie Clark, who has worked alongside you in the various energy industries, will reflect on your role as a corporate leader. The Honourable Dean Brown, former Premier of our state, will reflect on your Regal service. Stephen Haynes, former Deputy Chancellor of the University of Flinders, or I think it's just Flinders University, will reflect on your impact on higher education. Stephen regrettably can't be with us today, but he has given us a USB which pays tribute. And I will say a few words about your Rotary connections and your passion for education. I first met Sir Eric when he returned to South Australia as the state governor. Each state in Australia is the beneficiary of a postgraduate scholarship to Oxford funded by the Rhodes Trust. Sir Eric and the governor of each state is the chair of the committee that makes the selection. I was the secretary to that committee, and we first met in March 1997. Sir Eric was imbued with a passion for education. From being a member of the Senate of the University of Sydney and continued through to leadership of Flinders University as Chancellor, and later this passion was also demonstrated by his involvement in the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, both as the National Chair in Australia and as a trustee of the International Trust. Sir Eric was born into a Rotary family. His father, Jim, was the past president of Largs Bay Rotary Club, and he attended many meetings as Jim's guest. He was present at the charter of the Gawler Club and attended its 70th celebration last year. As his professional career demanded interstate transfers, the membership of Rotary continued at clubs like Wendouree, North Brisbane and North Sydney, and finally home to Adelaide, where he joined us as an honorary member 25 years ago. He and Lady Neal have been great supporters of our club, attending meetings, President weekends, and as always, including this meeting, he insisted on paying his way. The Neal family, through the agency of Lady Neal and Peter's wife Kim, have been significant donors to club projects. More recently, to our Centenary Legacy project to establish a PhD scholarship for an Aboriginal candidate to work on the prevention of chronic disease in Aboriginal communities. Sir Eric is a PHF recipient and has been awarded the RI President's Medal for outstanding vocational service. In closing, I would also like to acknowledge Sir Eric's life partner, Lady Joan. The role she has played in enabling Sir Eric's life of service. The support of partners is critical to managing complementary and auxiliary activities, such as running a home, raising a family, and being available to provide wise and counsel, and honest counsel. Lady Joan has provided that to Sir Eric so that he was free to concentrate on his professional life. And he knew the back office was in good order. Thank you, Sir Eric, for your lifetime of service to Australia and to Rotary. You join me. And I now call on past President Oliie Clark to say a few words about his interactions with Sir Eric over his professional career in the energy industry and corporate life. Did I leave a watch there?
I start by apologising for my eyesight, folks, but my daughter printed out in double size, so here's hoping. Rotarians and guests, first some early history. Eric's father, James, he came to Adelaide in the sort of mid-late 70s and at the request of the South Australian Gas Company, as a matter of fact, and to play a major role in the design, construction, commissioning of a what was considered then to be a modern gas works down at Osborne. He moved to Brompton with the family in the early 30s as a work superintendent, and they lived almost next door to the gas works. On his father's advice, Eric took on an apprenticeship at the gas company, and I've got to mention that he won a major prize there, and that was that he won the hand of a co-employment, Thelma Joan Bowden. They married in 1950. Eric had developed a deep interest in mechanical engineering, and he joined the fledgling Electricity Trust of SA around 1945 or 6 as a cadet engineer, and while studying engineering part-time at the School of Mines, as it was, Uni of SA these days. Well, his business career, in my view, in everybody's view, I'm sure, started in 1950 when the newly settled, here I go again, he joined the newlyweds moved up and into Broken Hill, and Eric joined the Broken Hill and Suburban Gas Company up there as the chief engineer, and went on from there to hold senior management positions. Now, I want to talk a little bit about an outfit called the Gas Supply Company. That company was formed in 1926 and emerged from a collection of very small coal gas companies around the country, actually. They were doing it tough because when they all started, they were there to produce gas for lighting streets, and that sort of ran out very early in the 20th century. But they brought them together, and that they developed improved purchasing power and things like that, and it was a great step forward for most of them, and they got to, say, have a bit more of a say in government matters. They had access to technical information and a plant all around the country, and it was a great step forward, and they did a marvellous job. One of the late company to merger into the gas supply company was, in fact, Broken Hill, which was one of the larger members, joining in 1955. A year later, the Ballarat Gas Company joined Gas Supply Company, and Eric became the manager of that before being appointed as the Assistant Chief General Manager of the entire gas supply company, a big job, and that was in 1963, which at that time had grown to actually incorporate 27 gasworks, Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, from Cairns right down to Portland in Victoria. 1963 was a game changer for in several respects, and a company named the Bitumen and Oil Refining of Australia Limited decided to change its name officially to its acronym, and it became Boral. And more importantly, and to the shock of most employees of the gas supply company, they upped and bought the gas supply company. So they became a very, very large part of the Boral organisation. And the Boral had actually formed, was founded in 1946 by and managed by one Elton Griffin. And later, he was Sir Elton Griffin. It had already been, I think you could say, working in many industries, and had a very, very pretty good reputation for its innovation and having a go, to put it into an Australian. Now, 1969 was a very, very big year also, a huge one for the gas industry. The production of crude oil and natural gas happened down at Bass Strait, and two very, very big refineries were started in Australia, and both in Victoria. And suddenly we had a hell of a lot of natural gas on our hands, and a hell of a lot of LP gas, propane, or as it was normally known as LPG, and that was available. And starting, Eric was very, very instrumental in spreading the LPG industry by, for one thing, starting to export it, for goodness sake, and getting into buying a tanker and delivering LPG to PNG for one, and other places, Fiji, Bali and the like thereafter. Elton Griffin promoted Eric to manage the entire fast-growing gas and liquid fuels areas in 1968, and when Elton's retirement came up in 1973, Eric was appointed to replace him as the Chief Executive Officer of Boral. Well, it went on from there. Under Eric's watch, from 1973 to his retirement in 1987, the company's revenue, profitability, employee numbers, capital value, and new ventures in the bits that weren't necessarily tied to energy, they all grew remarkably, and they all grew. It was positive from that very early stage right up until his retirement. The company became one of Australia's most renowned, and even had a little bit of reputation overseas. I just picked one little project they did. Eric was pretty keen about going overseas, and one of the organisations they set up was a roof tile manufacturing company in California, and it made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of roof tiles and became a very big company over there. So it's pretty famous around. Now, Eric became very, very well known, highly respected throughout the business world. He was invited to join boards on a range of leading companies, and companies such as BHP, Fairfax, Coca-Cola, Amatil, AMP, Atlas Copco, as he joined that as chairman, and others, and culminating in his joining the board of the Westpac Bank in 1985 and becoming the chairman of the organisation in 1989. And he was awarded a knighthood, just by the way, on the way through all that, in 1982, as a matter of fact. And I did a little research, and I think next Wednesday he could celebrate the 42nd year since he received that award. So you've done it very, very well, Sir Eric, of course. When he, it was sort of generally, when he was leading Westpac, it was generally agreed that things were pretty tough economically in the country at that time, and Eric put together a plan as chairman of Westpac to get over those hurdles for at least the bank and for a hell of a lot of companies as well. So he made his reputation all the way through all that, and he kept that up. So, ladies and gentlemen, my 5 minutes is up. Thank you very much. But, Sir Eric, thank you, mate, an icon of the gas industry, and you did so much for us all. Thank you.
Well, welcome to you all, and especially to Sir Eric Neal on this very special occasion. Sir Eric was Governor of South Australia from 1996 to 2001. He was the first business person to be appointed Governor. Most previous governors were retired military personnel. And I can say that because when I was out thinking about who might be governor, I got so many letters from retired military personnel and their supporters. The reason why I recommended a business person to the Queen, because it's the Queen's appointment, was because the state's economy was just recovering from a financial crisis following the collapse of the State Bank, SGIC, Beneficial Finance, SGI, Scrimger and many others. We needed all the support we could get from business to rebuild both confidence and the state's economy. Who better to appoint than a distinguished business leader who had sat, as Oliie had highlighted, on the boards of Australia's largest companies, including Westpac, BHP, Boral, AMP and Coca-Cola, to name just some. Hence, in July 1996, he was sworn in as the 31st Governor for a 5-year term. At the time, I pointed out that here was the 41st Premier welcoming the 31st Governor, so you could choose a career path as to who would be better. Make sure you go for Governor rather than Premier. Better still, he was actually sworn in at that occasion in July by the 8th Chief Justice of South Australia. So there's a simple message to pass on to your children and grandchildren. Aim to be Chief Justice rather than Premier or Governor. Sir Eric, with great support from Lady Joan Neal, made an immediate impact. They were enthusiastically embraced by the South Australian communities and public. They became patrons of a large number of community organisations. In return, they opened Government House for many supportive functions. Sir Eric hosted key business leaders from around the world at Government House and would take the opportunity to introduce them to ministers so they could discuss industrial opportunities here in South Australia. The guests included the global CEO of Electrolux, the world's biggest appliance manufacturer, and the newly appointed Managing Director of BHP, an American. He also accompanied key trade missions to overseas countries to expand export opportunities from South Australia. Meantime, Lady Joan developed her particular interests, including supporting the arts, football, and her beloved Port Power, and sailing. In 1998, I recommended to the National Health Ministers that a national committee be established to promote organ donation here in Australia, and that Sir Eric should be the inaugural chair. So from 1998 to 2002, he led the push for greater organ donation through Australians Donate. He also helped select key board members for the first board of Food Bank SA, which has been a great outstanding success for struggling families ever since. In 1995, Sir Eric was chair of the Australian Government's Working Group on Water Resource Policy, appointed by the federal government, which recommended the principles for sustainable water management in Australia, but especially in the Murray-Darling Basin. It was a policy I had been pushing since 1993, so it was music to my ears. Thank you for that, Sir Eric. It was very fitting that Sir Eric should have a Vice-Regal appointment, as he was National Chair of the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme from 1984 to 1992. This meant he had a personal contact with the Duke of Edinburgh. After his terms as Governor, Sir Eric held numerous other positions, including Chair of the Veterans Advisory Council of South Australia and Chair of the Road Safety Advisory Council, also of South Australia. So his service to our state and community was continued. So Eric, today we celebrate your very significant achievements and congratulate you on behalf of all South Australians on achieving 100. Thank you for your dedicated and outstanding contribution to our state.